Scandalous affairs, secret payments, accusations of Gestapo tactics, and we still have 6 months to go before America's 47th president is elected. Welcome to the new normal. Donald Trump, of course, returns to court this morning for week 4 of his criminal hush money trial. Week 3 ended with gripping testimony from former Trump aide Hope Hicks. She offered potentially damaging details about the hush money payments that were made by Trump to adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump refrained from commenting on his former employee's testimony.
What was it like seeing Hope Hicks again?
So I'm not allowed to comment on any of that. As you know, I'm under a gag order, which is very unprecedented.
Look at him being respectful of that. The former president then held a fundraiser at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend. He told Republican donors that President Biden is running a, quote, Gestapo administration, end quote, while falsely claiming that the White House is behind all of his criminal prosecutions. This is, of course, not the first time that Trump has used Nazi rhetoric in the campaign, and the Biden team wasted little time in responding. They said, quote, Trump is once again making despicable and insulting comments about the Holocaust while in the same breath attacking law enforcement, celebrating political violence, and threatening our democracy. All right, our panel's here. Former federal prosecutor Elliott Williams, Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, and Matt Gorman, who is former senior advisor to Tim Scott's presidential campaign. Welcome all. Thank you for being here. Congresswoman, let me start with you on these comments from Trump where he said that the Biden administration was using Gestapo tactics. We were just talking about how high emotions are running in other areas of our country, but this kind of language, it's not the first time Donald Trump has used it. What are the ramifications of Trump talking like this?
Well, this is how Donald Trump talks about many things, and I think it's just contributing to a whole a culture right now of the kind of way we're treating each other, a culture of hate, a culture of pitting us against each other. And I'm very concerned about what is happening out in our communities and people being pitted against each other. And I do believe that former President Trump fans the flames of it.
Elliott Williams, when you use a phrase like Gestapo tactics, let's just be clear about like what we're really talking about.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting is that across America, go through these newspapers that are sitting here right now, anti-Semitism is on the rise in the country. There are documented acts of violence and if not actual physical violence, harm against Jews. When you use terms like Gestapo tactics, even casually calling back to the Holocaust, I think number one, probably bring back very painful memories for many people and their families, but also to using the kind of rhetoric that the Congresswoman talked about here that really has very little place, even as metaphor in a civil society. There's just no place for it. But again, yesterday on the internet, on Twitter, I think idiot and liar were trending terms, right? And I just think it's indicative of the point that she was making, which is that words matter. And one ought not use terms like Gestapo, full stop.
Yeah. Matt Gorman, as the Republican at the table, I mean, do you see danger in what Donald Trump is doing here?
I mean, I think stepping back for a minute, I think it was interesting. And we've talked about this quite a bit. I think in many respects, in the back of your mind, you got to remember that there is a money deficit among his campaign and the Democrats. So I think some of this word use is somewhat intentional, whether it's for small dollar donors or like you saw in the room, to try and heighten.
We think like normal, like when you say small dollar donors, we're talking about people you send emails to. We think that they're going to go for talking about the Gestapo?
I think you have to remember that what animates these folks is kind of this sort of language, like that very us against them language. And whether they're high dollar donors in the room or low dollar donors, there is a somewhat of, in his mind, a purpose behind this sort of thing. And I think it's important to keep in mind. You can't discount the fact that the Republicans, they have a money gap to make up, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's some of the reason why.
All right, joining me now, CNN political commentators, Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton, and our S.E. Cupp. Thank you both for being here this morning. Obviously, we're going to start with the poll of polls. The average of the polls, looking at them, tight as could possibly be, Essie. If you are running a campaign, what are you thinking right now?
Well, I think these polls are tight because Donald Trump's voters have very low standards, and Joe Biden's voters have standards that are probably a little too high. So Donald Trump has got a fan base that doesn't care about all the things that would normally drag down a candidate. And I think Joe Biden's voters are demanding better, demanding more. They're saying, I'm going to stay home if you don't change some of your positions and your rhetoric. So I think that's why they're tight, but they're going to be tight this whole time. There are a lot of X factors. We've got a third party candidate who could really blow up this election. We've got the trials. We've got an economy that could change and really alter the polls in the election. So there's a lot of unknowns still.
Sure, Michael, I want to ask you about this. Trump at a private donor retreat said this about the Biden administration. He said these people, talking about the Biden administration, are running a Gestapo administration. He just compared Biden and his administration to the Nazis. Who is this going to work with? His base, or is this something he's hoping will have some kind of effect on the rest of the electorate?
I mean, I don't think it's going to have an effect on the rest of the electorate. It maintains that energy and excitement among the base. SE just laid out a litany of things about why this race is so close. This ultimately, Sarah, in my view, is going to come down to turnout. And I think a part of the problem for the Biden re-elect campaign is, can you get all of those disparate groups to turn out in heightened numbers as you did in 2020? With young voters, it's about the issue with Palestinians. With many African Americans, it's about the economy. And with many swing voters, they're looking at immigration. Trump's voters are going to turn out. Biden has to figure out a way to coalesce all of those disparate groups together, and that's going to be challenging. So the former president's remarks on Nazi Germany, he continues with this rhetoric. It's good for the base, good fodder, if you will, but it's not going to really move individuals one way or another, because ultimately it's about turning out and maintaining that energy with your constituents.
The Biden administration responded and just went after them. But I want to ask you guys and get to the vice president choices. There are a lot of them. These are just a few. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. You've got North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Some of these names people certainly know. J.D. Vance, Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. I want you to listen to what Senator Tim Scott said when he was asked whether or not he would agree that the 2020 election was fair and that Biden is the president. Here's what he said.
Well, Senator, will you commit to accepting the election results of 2024? Bottom line.
At the end of the day, the 47th president of the United States will be President Donald Trump, and I'm excited to get back to low inflation, low unemployment.
Wait,
and high
Senator, yes or
enthusiasm.
no? Yes or no? Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter who wins?
That is my statement.
All right, SE, you are giggling. Is this going to be a litmus test for vice presidents answering this question as to whether they're going to accept the 2024 election results or whether they believe that 2020 was corrupt?
Yeah, and you know, bless her heart, Kristen Welker asked him several more times to answer a very
wouldn't answer
easy question, and he can't, because these are like hostage videos. And if you are if you are preening and posturing to be the vice presidential pick, this is how crazy you have to look. This is how brainwashed you have to sound. It's not just him. You can listen to Doug Burgum also, talk about Donald Trump in ways that seem very bizarre and cultish. But I think this is the ritual you have to perform to catch Donald Trump's eye and assure that loyalty above all else, loyalty above principle, above politics, above policy, will be your biggest calling card.
Sure, Michael, what is your take? I know that when people were trying to work for the RNC, they were asked a question about whether they believe the 2020 election was fair and that Joe Biden is the president. What's your take on what you just heard from Tim Scott?
I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for the senator. He's the only black Republican in the U.S. Senate. And this is a part of, I guess, the conundrum of being African-American and also being a Republican in the era of Donald Trump, especially if you sort of want to be a part of the inner circle. I think my advice, Sarah, would be to the former president, you need to allow some of these people to have the freedom of mind to offer their own thoughts on some of these issues. Again, in the previous discussion, I was talking about how this is a matter of turnout. If it is a matter of turnout, you certainly don't want to increase turnout from your opponent by having the individuals that you may potentially choose as your running mate taking positions that make people say, I just don't want another 4 years of this. I'm going to vote for Biden, even though I have concerns about a whole host of issues. And so for Senator Scott and for many of the other individuals, I would say have that autonomy. It's important. People respect that. And you can do that while still saying, I think Donald Trump is better on the economy or immigration or any other issue.
Well, hopefully the vice presidential candidates have a mind of their own and can speak for themselves. But here we are. Thank you so much, Shermichael Singleton, SE Cup. Always a pleasure to see you guys.